There is a voice inside your head that talks to you all day long. It criticizes, it doubts, it warns, it predicts the worst, and most of the time you believe it without even questioning. That voice has already cost you sleepless nights, important decisions, opportunities that never came back, and the most disturbing part, it sounds exactly like you, so it feels like it is telling the truth. But what if it were not you? What if that voice were just an old echo, a pattern that can be interrupted, silenced, redesigned? Imagine waking up and not feeling the weight of it. Imagine making decisions with clarity, without the constant noise of, what if it goes wrong? Imagine living without the inner courtroom that judges every step you take, that life is possible. And it begins when you discover what the Stoics knew 2,000 years ago, and what modern psychology has confirmed. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses which of them deserve attention. In this video, you are going to learn 9 practices that separate those who are ruled by their own minds from those who have learned to command them. These are not self-help tricks. They are tools tested by time, simple, direct, and capable of giving back something you did not even realize you had lost: the silence within you. Before we begin, write in the comments, "I am not that voice." That simple gesture is the first cut into the voice that has been following you for far too long. Like, share, subscribe. This content needs to reach those who still do not know they can live without that noise. 1. Your mind is crying for help. Stop and sort it out. Your mind is overloaded, and you did not even notice when it started. Every single day, thousands of thoughts walk in without permission. Some come to build. They bring clarity, strength, direction. Others come to destroy. They spread doubt, fear, self-criticism. And most people live without telling one from the other, letting the destructive ones take over the place. These destructive thoughts always have the same tone. Another mistake for the collection, another missed opportunity. I should have done it differently. They sound like reflection, but they are sabotage disguised as honesty. This inner dialogue works like a heavy backpack during a marathon. With every step, the effort grows until the journey becomes impossible. The problem is not the race. It is the weight that, without noticing, you choose to carry every day. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." He was right. If thoughts are seeds, you need to choose carefully what you plant, because sooner or later, everything that was sown is going to bloom inside you. Carl Jung also warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And this means that when you do not watch what keeps repeating inside your mind, you start to believe life is just bad luck, fate, or unfairness, when, in fact, very often, it is the echo of your own unquestioned thoughts. Every criticism you repeat to yourself becomes a brick in that unconscious. Over time, those bricks raise invisible walls that limit your choices, make you hesitate, turn down opportunities, and believe you are not capable. You think you are deciding freely, but in truth, you are following a hidden script written by your own self-criticism. That is how negative patterns grow, like invisible monsters that begin to shape your decisions and twist the way you see yourself. They steal your clarity, they convince you that you do not deserve, and they turn mistakes into chains that keep you locked in place. The Stoics had a powerful antidote. Instead of drowning in self-criticism, they turned mistakes into lessons. Seneca said, "To err is human, but to persist in error is diabolical." It is not about denying failures, it is about correcting them, growing through them and moving forward. Continuing to punish yourself is like rowing against the current without realizing the boat has a hole in it. When you adjust your inner dialogue, it is like fixing the boat. It starts to sail in the right direction, and the current that once pulled you under begins to push you forward. Here is a simple Stoic practice. Every time you face a mistake or a challenge, write down the phrases you use against yourself. Read them out loud and ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, rephrase it. Swap, I never get anything right, for I am learning, and that takes time. Every night, reflect, did I speak to myself with kindness today? What can I do better tomorrow? Little by little, your mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a place of clarity and strength. This simple exercise turns you from being the enemy that attacks itself in silence into being the ally that supports, strengthens, and guides. And when you decide to treat yourself with respect, even in the face of mistakes, something powerful happens. The voice that once knocked you down begins to hold you up, and the mind that was a battlefield becomes the safest place for you to exist. Because in the end, it is not the criticism from outside that hurts you the most. It is the words you repeat to yourself every single day. And when those words change, everything changes. The mind stops being the place where you get beaten down and becomes the place where you rise. 2. Silence, the weapon of the wise. Silence is the most underrated weapon in the modern world. While everyone chases more information, more noise, more stimulation, the wise know that true strength comes from the opposite, from the ability to grow quiet within. Because a silent mind is like a lake at rest. Only in stillness can you see the bottom, and only there can you truly see yourself. That's what meditation does. By closing your eyes for a few minutes, focusing only on your breath, you create space between you and your thoughts. It's not about stopping your thoughts, but about watching them pass, without being swept away by them. The Stoics already practiced something very similar. Marcus Aurelius, in his written meditations, recorded reflections that helped him understand his impulses and emotions. For him, meditating was returning to his center, finding reason again in the middle of the storm. There's something few people realize. Most of what you feel as stress doesn't come from the world. It comes from the noise you carry inside. Dozens of internal conversations happening at once, judgments, memories, projections about the future. And it's in that invisible chaos that your decisions are born, your emotions take shape, your identity is molded. When you meditate, you're not adding anything new. You're removing the noise that should never have taken over the place. Today, science confirms what philosophers always sensed. Meditation reduces anxiety, sharpens focus, and strengthens self-control. It's like sharpening the blade of your mind every single day. And here lies what few people understand. Meditating isn't about technique, it's about presence. You don't need an app, a mantra, or a perfect posture. You only need 5 honest minutes with yourself. No phone, no distraction, no escape. Most people have never spent 5 minutes alone with themselves, and that's why they live in constant flight from their own thoughts. Whoever learns to hold that silence, even if only for minutes, discovers something rare, the feeling of being whole, in one single place, without splitting yourself in two. Start simple. Sit in silence for 5 minutes, breathe deeply, and observe. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back. That's the practice. Meditating isn't running away from the world, it's building a place inside yourself where the world doesn't enter without permission. And the day you discover that this place exists, you'll understand why the wise of every era chose silence as their shelter. 3. How the Stoics turn fear into courage. Fear is the quietest thief there is. It doesn't break into your house. It doesn't steal your belongings. It doesn't attack you head-on. It convinces you, in whispers, to give up on what could change your life. And the worst part, it makes you believe it's protecting you while it locks you in. Think about how many opportunities have passed you by because you believed its whisper. How many decisions you postponed, how many dreams you shelved, how many conversations you avoided. Fear is like a maze of locked doors. The more you avoid the confrontation, the more those doors seem to multiply, surrounding you on every side. It doesn't just limit your actions, it also robs you of your potential, turning possibilities into silent regrets. But here's the truth. The problem isn't fear itself, it's the fuel you give it. The more you build disastrous scenarios in your mind, the bigger fear grows, like a shadow that looks enormous until you realize it was just a shape with no substance. What you feed thrives, and what you face shrinks. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If something outside causes you anxiety, it isn't the thing that disturbs you, but the judgment you make about it. And you can change that judgment right now." That's the key. Changing the judgment is changing the size of the fear. Think of fear as a dark room. From a distance, everything looks threatening, strange shapes, frightening figures. But when you turn on the light, you realize there were no monsters, just dust gathered in the corners. It works like this. Instead of running from fear, you place it right in front of you, as if you were turning on the light in a dark room. Close your eyes and picture in detail the worst that could happen in the situation that paralyzes you. If it's a presentation, picture the moment you forget your words. If it's a hard decision, imagine the mistake actually happening. And then ask yourself, if this really happens, what could actually go wrong? Would I lose everything? Or would I just face a moment of discomfort? And if it does go wrong, how can I deal with it? Most of the time, you'll realize that what you called a monster was just a shadow, not an impossible abyss, but an obstacle smaller than it seemed. That clarity shrinks the intensity of fear because you stop fighting against the unknown and start seeing what's real. Confucius said, "It is better to light a small candle than to curse the darkness." And Susan Jeffers, author of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, showed that taking one small step already drastically reduces the intensity of fear. It's like looking at a river that seems deep, but when you put your foot in the water, realizing it's much shallower than it looked. So what do you do in practice? First, name the fear. Don't just say, "I'm afraid of failing." Ask, failing at what? What exactly scares me? Then use the worst-case scenario technique. If it goes wrong, what's the real consequence, and how can I face it? And finally, act even with fear. Don't wait for full confidence. Take a small step, but move forward. With every move, fear shrinks and you grow stronger. Fear doesn't have to be your enemy. It can be a compass, pointing toward the places where you can grow the most. Often, what scares you the most is exactly what transforms you the most. The next time fear shows up, ask, is this fear a warning of real danger, or is it a sign that I'm about to grow? Most of the time, it's the second one, and that's exactly where you need to go. Because whoever runs from fear runs from the life they could have had. And whoever faces it discovers something the silent thief spent years hiding. You were always bigger than him. 4. Your uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy. Your mind is the place where you spend every single second of your life. And most of the time, it's also the place where you suffer the most, not because of the world, not because of other people, not because of circumstances, but because of the thoughts you insist on holding on to, even knowing they hurt you. Think about it. What do you do when a light bulb burns out? You don't keep trying to turn it on. You don't sit around waiting for it to come back on its own. You don't try to convince yourself that it still works. You simply replace it with a new one. But with your thoughts, you do the exact opposite. You hold on to ideas that have already burned out, that don't light up anything anymore, and you cling to them as if one day they'll finally light the way. Thoughts like, it's too late for me now. I'm not capable of being in a relationship anymore. I always act this way. These thoughts are like tight shoes. Every step you take in them only hurts more, until walking becomes unbearable. You take the shoes off, right? So why not apply the same logic to your mind, replacing what limits you with something that sets you free? Cleanthes of Assos used to say, "Just as water shapes the stone, thoughts shape our mind." And he was right. Repeated thoughts have the power to sculpt our perception of the world. The problem is that when we let the negative ones repeat themselves over and over, they carve deep marks, turning passing situations into walls that seem impossible to climb. But remember, a thought is not a life sentence. It can be replaced. Trading, "It's too late for me now," for "I'm going to try," is not just empty optimism, it's neuroscience. Andrew Huberman explains that every time you consciously choose a new thought, your brain creates different connections, and the more you reinforce them, the stronger they become. Think of it like crossing a muddy field. At first, stepping off the worn path takes effort. Your feet sink in, your body fights back. But the more you choose to step in a different direction, the firmer that new path becomes until the old one fades away on its own. Thoughts are like tools. If you try to hang a picture frame with a screwdriver, it's never going to work, no matter how hard you try. But when you switch to the right tool, the work just flows. In the same way, holding on to rusty thoughts only slows your life down. Progress begins when you swap out what no longer serves you for ideas that open up new possibilities. This takes practice, but every swap is a brick laid down on a more solid path. And little by little, your mind stops being a warehouse of heavy ideas and becomes a workshop of clarity and strength. Here's the Stoic exercise today. Choose just one thought that tends to hold you back. Write it down, challenge it, and replace it with another one that moves you forward. Repeat that swap for 1 week. Just like someone changing a burned-out light bulb, you'll start to notice a new light shining on places that once seemed permanently dark. Because the truth is simple, you don't need a new mind. You need to stop carrying around the old one, and the moment you allow yourself to replace what's burned out, you'll find out that the light was never the problem. The problem was insisting on what had already gone dark. 5. Turn what weighs you down into clarity, strength, and the confidence you were missing. There is one difference that separates those who rise from those who fall apart: what each one does with their own thoughts. The same event, lived by two different people, leads to opposite results. For one, it becomes a lesson. For the other, it becomes a crack. And an ignored crack doesn't go away. It spreads until it weakens the whole structure. And that is exactly what happens inside your mind. It's not your boss's tone of voice, the short answer from a friend, or the line at the grocery store that really shakes you. It's the way you interpret these moments. The weight you give to each detail becomes the crack that, little by little, weakens your confidence. The Stoics taught a different way. Instead of running from your thoughts, question them. Seneca used to say that every idea should be put to the test. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, always asked the same question: is this within my control? If it wasn't, he simply refused to spend any energy on it. And you can do the same. When something hurts you, stop and ask yourself, why is this affecting me so much? Is this thought real, or is it just a reflection of fear? A lot of the time you'll realize it's not a real problem, just an automatic reaction. Even science backs this up. Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology, showed that reframing situations changes the way they impact your mind. In other words, it's not the problem that destroys you, it's the lens you see it through. For example, instead of thinking, I messed up, I'm a failure, say, I messed up, but I can learn from this. This shift doesn't erase your problems. It doesn't make your challenges any easier, but it redefines how you react to them. And that changes everything. Try this. Write your negative thoughts down on a piece of paper as if they were cracks. For each one, ask yourself, is this real? Is this within my control? What are the actual chances of this happening? Then replace each thought with a more realistic version. For example, I'm never going to make it can become, I'll take it one step at a time and keep learning. But identifying isn't enough. Just like in a home renovation, finding the crack doesn't fix anything. You have to take action. Ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take right now to change this? And take that step no matter how small, because every conscious action is a brick laid in the foundation of your mind. Because in the end, life isn't defined by what happens to you. It's defined by what your mind does with what happens. And whoever learns to choose what deserves space in there discovers what only a few ever do. Peace was never out there in the world. It was in the choice not to build it with cracks. 6. The view from above transforms you. There is a technique used by the greatest philosophers in history to step out of suffering in a matter of seconds. It is not forced positivity, it's not distraction, it's not escape. It's something far deeper, learning to look at your own life from above. Because almost every problem that feels crushing, when seen from a distance, reveals its true size, not the size that fear has blown it up to. Imagine looking down at a city from high up in an airplane. Down below, the traffic that felt unbearable shrinks into tiny lines of light in motion. Nothing has changed in the city, but the perspective has changed everything. That is how life works. When you are inside the problem, it feels enormous, unbearable. When you step away, you realize it is only one part of your story, not the whole story. Marcus Aurelius used this exercise all the time. He would remind himself of the vastness of the cosmos, of the size of the universe set against the brevity of life. That thought did not depress him. On the contrary, it freed him from the obsession with meaningless details. How many times has a small detail taken over your entire day? A harsh piece of criticism you got at work that you kept turning over in your head for hours. A text message that never came and left you imagining 1,000 different things. Or someone who did not live up to your expectations, and suddenly all of your energy was drained by it. In that moment, it feels like the end of the world. But when you look at it from above, you see that it is nothing more than a drop in a much larger ocean. Ask yourself, will this thing that worries me today still matter 1 year from now, or 5 years from now? Most of the time, the answer will be no, and in that very moment, the weight begins to lift. The Stoics called this practice the view from above. Marcus Aurelius pictured himself watching the earth from outer space, seeing entire wars as nothing more than ant colonies fighting over crumbs. It was not cynicism, it was liberation. When you see yourself as part of something bigger than your own drama, you discover that many of your problems only exist because you are standing too close to them. Step back in your mind, and the giant shrinks. There is an uncomfortable truth about suffering. It feeds on closeness. The more you cling to the problem, the bigger it gets. The more you keep replaying the scene, going over the conversation, imagining alternate endings, the more it grows inside of you. The view from above is the opposite of that. It is the conscious refusal to keep handing the problem a microphone it does not deserve. You are not running away, you are simply refusing to live down at its level. Seeing life from above does not erase your problems, it puts each one back at the size it actually is. And the moment you learn to do this, you discover a truth that changes the way you relate to everything. You were never too small for the problem. The problem is that it had grown too big in your eyes. 7. Stop copying your environment. The environment you live in is the invisible author of your personality. You don't notice it, but it's writing you every single day. The conversations you overhear, the people you spend time with, the screens you consume, all of it enters your mind without asking permission and quietly shapes what you think, what you feel, and what you believe is possible. Think about this. It's like walking into a small restaurant and someone next to you is wearing a very strong cologne. Even if you only put on a little of your own, that scent soaks into your clothes, into your skin, and walks out the door with you when you leave. In the same way, negativity works like an invisible smoke. You start the day motivated, but after so many complaints and so much criticism, your energy feels drained, and without realizing it, you adopt the very same thoughts you used to push away. Neuroscience explains this through mirror neurons, the brain's true emotional antennas. They connect us to the feelings of the people around us. That's why being around someone who is constantly negative can shape you without you even noticing, as if you were being pulled along on the same wavelength. But there is a way out. Picture a room full of smoke. You can open the windows, turn on a fan, or simply walk out. It's the same with your mind. You get to choose what you let in and what you keep out. Seneca offered this advice. Surround yourself with people who can make you better, and at the same time, seek to make others better. Udi, this doesn't mean living in isolation, but knowing how to filter what deserves your attention and your energy. If you let everything in without a filter, it's like living in a house with no doors during a thunderstorm. You can't control the rain, but you can protect the inside of your home. Daniel Goleman, in Emotional Intelligence, explains that negative emotions are highly contagious. But when you develop emotional awareness, you learn to separate what is yours from what is outside influence. It's like installing a glass door. You can see what's outside, but you decide what gets to come in. Protecting your mind takes practice. If, every single day, heavy news, social media, or toxic conversations are draining your energy, try closing those open windows. That might mean muting a few profiles that only spread pessimism, leaving group chats where the conversation never moves past complaints, turning off the TV when all that's on is tragedy, turning down that coffee meetup where people always badmouth others, or simply setting your phone aside for a few hours. Small choices like these stop negativity from walking in uninvited and give your mind back the fresh air it needs to breathe. When you close those windows, you gain something even more precious: time and life. And that time isn't meant to be filled with more distractions, but with what renews your vitality. Walking outdoors, being with people who inspire you, or pouring yourself into a hobby that nourishes your mind. Each choice like this is like laying a solid stone into the foundation of your inner fortress. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, a place of stability inside of you that no outside storm can ever knock down. It isn't a wall of isolation, but a sanctuary of awareness and clarity. You build this citadel when you learn to meditate, to reflect, to read, or simply to be silent for a few minutes every day. It is in that silence that the mind regains its strength and becomes unshakable. You don't control the storm out there, but you do control how it enters your home. Every door you close to what contaminates you is a wall that rises to protect what sustains you, and little by little, what was once just defense becomes power. Because in the end, there is only one difference between someone who is swept away by their environment and someone who transforms it. One absorbs everything that comes their way, the other chooses. And whoever learns to choose discovers something rare. The environment stops dictating who you are. You start dictating what it will be. 8. Start with the root cause. There comes a moment when everything you tolerate begins to define who you are. It isn't a single blow that destroys a life. It's the silent buildup of what should have been cut away and wasn't. That thought that came back yesterday, the habit you put off breaking, the person who has been draining your energy for years. Each one seems too small to ever become a real problem. But that is exactly how the problem takes shape. It's like a drawer in your house. At first, just a few useless objects, a pen out of ink, a crumpled piece of paper, a key you can't even remember belongs to what. It seems harmless, so you leave it there. But over time, that drawer fills up with unnecessary things, until when you need to find something important, there's no longer any room and no longer any clarity. The mind works the exact same way. Small negative thoughts, harmful habits, or relationships that drain your energy start out subtle, almost invisible. But if you don't face them, they pile up until they suffocate what truly matters. Seneca said, "The wise man is content with his soul, and therefore has no need of the approval of others." When you tolerate what hurts you, an addiction, a destructive thought, a relationship that crosses your boundaries, you sacrifice your peace in exchange for something that should never have held more value than you yourself. The cruelest part is that tolerating always seems like the easier choice. Cutting hurts. Breaking off requires confrontation. Changing a habit takes effort. So the mind, always looking for the path of least resistance, convinces you that it's worth putting up with it just a little longer. One more week, one more month, one more year. And what was once small becomes your identity. You stop being someone with a problem and you become someone defined by it. The Stoics called this voluntary servitude. You aren't trapped because someone locked you in. You're trapped because you chose every single day not to open the door. And here lies the turning point that changes everything. The moment you admit that what limits you most was not imposed on you by life, it was kept alive by you. Painful at first, freeing for the rest of your life. Cutting evil out at the root takes courage and honesty. It means looking inward and asking, does this still make sense in my life? This habit, this relationship, this thought, is it making me stronger or weaker? The excuses almost always come up. It's not that bad. Or, I'll deal with it later. But while you put it off, the problem grows. Think of a tree. For it to bloom, it has to be pruned. The dry and diseased branches have to go to make room for the new. Life is the same. If you don't cut away what has already served its purpose, what is essential can find no room to grow. Practice this. Over the next few days, choose a single root to cut. It could be a habit that steals your energy, an inner criticism you repeat without realizing it, or a relationship that has long since lost its respect. Take that weight out of your mental drawer. You owe no one an explanation. The commitment is to your own clarity. Because the life you want isn't going to show up on the day something good finally happens. It will show up on the day you decide to stop tolerating what is keeping you from blooming. And that day can be today. 9. Stronger than any pressure. There is a kind of strength that is not born in easy moments. It does not come from motivation, from a good day, from the phase when everything seems to go right. It is born from the opposite, from the instant when everything collapses and you discover that you are still standing. This strength cannot be taught. It only appears when life insists on testing who you truly are. Think of a road full of potholes after a storm. The ground is wet, slippery. Every step demands twice the effort. In some moments, doubt arises. Will I be able to make it to the end? But the only way to cross that road is to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Life is often like this. Pressures show up as potholes, stones, mud. Negativity tries to push you down. But it is precisely in this moment that your strength needs to reveal itself. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, what stands in the way becomes the way. Obstacles are not there to stop us, but to shape us into someone stronger. Every difficulty you face is a chance to prepare yourself for something greater. Think of Nick Vujicic, who was born without arms and legs. He could have limited himself to what he did not have, but he chose to focus on what he could do. Today, he inspires millions, not because his life was easy, but because he showed that courage and purpose are stronger than any physical limitation. Now bring this into your own life. Maybe your obstacle is not being born without limbs, but losing a job that seemed secure, facing an unexpected illness, or having to start over after a deep disappointment. The way you react in these moments defines whether the pain will be a weight that paralyzes you or a force that lifts you up. The psychologist Edith Grotberg, a specialist in resilience, explains that what strengthens the human mind is finding purpose in challenges. When you decide that a loss will become a lesson or that a disappointment will serve to open new paths, you stop being a victim of the situation and start being the main character of it. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps, lived this in his own skin. He could not change the hunger, the violence, nor the pain around him, but he discovered that he still had freedom over one thing, the meaning he gave to the suffering. That is why he wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And that is the essence of inner strength. You do not choose the storm, but you choose who you will be in the face of it. Many times, life places us in front of situations that are impossible to change, irreversible, and it is precisely in these that we need to learn how to cope. Think of a difficult divorce. Parents carry pain, resentment, and frustration. But even so, they need to find the maturity to place their children's feelings above their own wounds. It is not simple, but it is a choice of strength to care, to take part, and to protect the hearts of those children so that they can grow up without carrying a weight that does not belong to them. This is the essence of resilience. When you cannot change the situation, you can still change the way you react to it. It is not about carrying the world on your shoulders, but about taking the next step, no matter how small. In a divorce, for example, that step might be choosing to talk calmly instead of arguing. It might be showing up for an important moment in your children's lives, even with a wounded heart, or simply deciding to be present despite the pain. Each gesture like this does not solve everything at once, but it builds, little by little, a healthier path for everyone. And that is exactly what life asks of us. Steps. Because every step, no matter how small it may seem, brings you closer to the place where you want to arrive. Maybe you still cannot see the entire road, but the road does not need to be ready before the step. It opens up as you move forward. And that is why so many people never get there. They keep waiting to see everything lit up before walking, and the light only turns on for those who move. Because in the end, strength is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to keep going even with it. And whoever learns to take the next step, even a small one, even a trembling one, even in the dark, discovers a truth that few will ever discover. You have always been stronger than anything that tried to bring you down. You started this video carrying a voice that had been following you for far too long, a voice that doubted, compared, sabotaged, trapped. A voice that you believed was your own, and that for this reason seemed impossible to silence. But as each habit was being presented, something silent began to happen. You realized that voice was not you. It was only the echo of old thoughts, fears that were never confronted, patterns that no one ever taught you how to interrupt. And what seemed like identity was maintenance. The truth is that no one needs a new life in order to change their life. They need a new mind. And a new mind is not born from grand promises. It is born from small and repeated decisions. The silence chosen in place of the noise, the thought questioned in place of the one accepted, the route cut in place of the tolerated. Each of these gestures seems insignificant on its own, but together, every single day, they quietly dismantle the version of you that was living trapped. And when you least expect it, you discover that the voice that had been bringing you down does not vanish through attack. It vanishes through replacement. You simply stopped feeding it, and it starved to death. So look at yourself now with honesty. The life you want is not waiting for you to get better. It is waiting for you to grow quiet enough on the inside to listen to who you truly are, beneath everything they told you that you were. This video did not come to give you answers. It came to remind you that you always had them. And now that the voice that was sabotaging you has begun to lose its strength, what will take its place is your choice. Choose well. because the silence you have just conquered is the beginning of everything you are still going to build. The Stoic House awaits you whenever you need to breathe. Like, share and subscribe so you do not miss any of our gatherings. Thank you for watching.